Welcome to NeuroMovement Revolution with Anat Baniel, where you will discover breakthrough possibilities for your life through the brain's power to change. We're so happy that you can join us in making the impossible possible.
So we're now moving on to episode 17. And this podcast is where we said we will answer live questions, but also go over some of the many questions that have been popping up that we maybe haven't got around to answering live on the podcast. So we're collecting them as we go through every episode, and we'll take live questions from people who are here, but we'll also start to go back over some of those. So I don't know where you want to start, Anat.
Still with people who were on the previous episode.
We have a question from Jacqueline Kaminsky. Thank you, Jacqueline. She says, my daughter, also on the autism spectrum, is 11 years old and started talking to herself and mumbling to herself after a foot injury in April when she was in a cast and could not move around as much as usual. The foot is fine now, but the self-talk mumbling keeps going on all day at home and at school. And the worrying thing is that she often does not reply when asked the question. She does not seem to hear anything around her, but sometimes she snaps out of it. There is no way of stopping it, and I am often at a loss at how to connect with her. Is there any advice you have for getting her back from her world?
Well, I first of all, I know this is very, very challenging. This must be extremely hard, for you guys, and could even be hard for her. We don't really know, but she might be experiencing it is difficult for herself too. The child, I have two answers. One is, if you are anywhere near, because this is quite extreme, if you're anywhere near a practitioner, or if you can travel to somewhere where there are practitioners or is a practitioner, especially if you can find somebody that has had experience working with children, ABM practitioner, and also with autism, that could be helpful, because some things, it's not do it yourself. And if a practitioner can help drive some changes and improvements in the way her brain works, then it will become a lot easier for you to connect with your child. The only other suggestion I can have is to apply the essentials in any fashion that you may, come up with. Because there isn't like, you do this with this condition. It's the child, that there has to be an immediacy of response and interaction with the child. So I wish I could have told you, more what you can do yourself.
I think I recall something that you said in our podcast about flexible goals, and take your eye off what the actual issue is that you're trying to address, and bring those essentials just into some other part of her life. So then you get the process going. You upgrade her brain.
Well, you hope to upgrade her brain. You can't guarantee it, but that is a good suggestion. But I don't know for sure, but from the question, the girl seems to have dissociated and not respond to much of anything. One of the ways, though, she still eats, she still gets dressed, she still gets bathed. So she still goes into the car and out of the car, I assume. So what the essentials do is they wake up the brain. They wake it up to notice and to create new connections and to form itself keep forming itself and in positive direction. So I will just between what Neil said and if you can go to a practitioner that can help create a bigger opening, then it will also become much easier for you and anybody else with her to interact with her in a way that keeps promoting her progress.
So I'm going to move on to some of the questions that we have collected over the weeks we've been going. I think you wanted to mention, Anat, that we are going to have specific podcasts related to autism spectrum disorder. So if we don't focus on autism spectrum this morning, just know that we...
Well, we might answer more questions, but we will do at least one podcast, and probably be an hour podcast just on the topic of autism. And then we will do some podcasts that focus on other conditions. And I would always recommend to everybody to listen to all of them, because talk about creativity and expanding your own perception, you'll see how the things that are done for, with the child on the spectrum, fundamentally the underlying processes are no different than working with a child that has a paralysis of the hand. The contents change, but not the processes. And the more you get a feel for the underlying use of the essentials, and kind of looking at the child from the point of view of how is this brain functioning right now? How free is it? How compulsive is it? How available is it for learning? Can I up its availability for learning? When you start looking at the child behind the scenes this way, and the more you see it done with different conditions, some of which you don't think apply to your child at all, and may not apply specifically to your child, but you still see it, you will be, again, have more creativity, like we spoke about in the previous podcast. Yeah.
Okay, so, Jacqueline has said, thank you so much for your answer related to her daughter.
Do you find it helpful? I mean, I appreciate your politeness, but I'd like to know if it was helpful at all, because I want to be helpful. Okay, so if you can just send another little message. Okay. And if not, I would like to know too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So a question from Angie Miller, in fact, two. They're related to ankle foot orthotics. And do you think, what is your opinion of them? Do you think AFOs block sensation to the feet and signals to the brain regarding walking independently?
Okay, so what is my feeling or opinion?
What is your opinion? And do you think they block sensation?
Okay, I don't know about opinion, but I understand the question. The question is what drives us to put an orthotics on the foot or leg of a child, and what is it that we're trying to accomplish? So there are situations when putting in orthotics is actually called for. So I'll look at that for a moment. But before I do, it's also how is those orthotics structured? What kind of orthotic and what does it do? So those of you who know our work and have worked with us may know that we recommend people to, occasionally children, to be taken, we suggest to check with Dr. Nuzzo or Dr. Jordan, but also there's somebody in Texas.
Oh, yes, Dr. Ingvi.
Dr. Ingvi, to perhaps do what they call a SPML, which is a very relatively non-intrusive surgery that the recovery is very quick, and it fits functionally very well with how we think, and that's for spasticity. So children with the CP or other reasons for spasticity, and I think within a day after this, first they put them in a small cast on their foot to protect the ankle, and then when the cast comes off, they put them in orthotics. So that starts also answering the second part of the question. The first time I saw what a child, after they had the surgery with the Dr. Nuzzo, and I saw the cast, I mean, he became a hero, because if that's the foot, usually people would put the cast all the way to the toes. They cut the cast where the balls of the foot and certainly the toes were outside of the cast. And I thought, oh, this guy knows how to think about this, because he wants the child to keep having sensation. He's not just trying to create an exoskeleton. So the brain doesn't know how to use the muscles, so that the weight travels through the bones. See, that is a whole very complex system that makes sure that we walk bearing weight as much as possible through the bones continuously as we move. When there is, with kids with autism, oftentimes this doesn't work well, not well enough organized children with CP for sure, and other conditions. So I saw that and I thought, this is phenomenal. And then I different children, at a certain point, the child had a brace, and the brace was done in a way that the front was had the plastic, but it had some flexibility. It could open, so the movement forward and backward was not inhibited. It was again cut where the girl still felt the ground, and because that's what the brain needs, to feel the changeability of input as we move the foot. So even if the ground is like a floor is the same, the sensation changes. The movement of the ankle is so central in the whole question of walking, and so on. So, but they didn't want her to have movement right and left, again, for whatever reasons. And then I felt like I wanted her out of the braces. I wanted her to have more, because now we could build on what was accomplished. And I called Dr. Nuzzo, and I had a wonderful conversation with him. And I asked him, is it okay if I just we don't put the braces? He said, absolutely. If she doesn't need them, just take them away. And it's like, really? Oh, okay. Because what I started with the mother is put them for half an hour, we'll take them away, put them an hour, so it's not all the time in the braces. So yes, if a child is in those fixed braces all the way to the knee, and the floor of the foot always gets pretty much the same input, because you fix the ankle and the foot inside the brace, so you make it look like it's in 90 degrees. But yeah, if it's for years, yes, the child loses sensation, the mapping in the brain. It's like if you put your hand in a cast for 6 months and you stopped using it and you stop getting variability of sensation, the mapping of the hand in the brain starts to disappear. So the brace can be useful at times, or if we gave up on the child ever learning to use their leg and their foot more fully. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to another question. This is from Lisa Williams. Is it okay to let our daughter attempt to stand and balance? She has no balance but good leg strength, and she really enjoys it. If we are sitting with her, she will squirm and stretch her legs out to try to stand. She really enjoys it, and we make sure she does not stress her muscles or ligament. Our daughter was normal and running around healthy until around 2 years ago. We found her face down, not breathing one night. Long story short, after a coma and a failed extubation at 3.5 months in the hospital, she had severe hypoxic brain injury. She's been slowly gaining strength and function, and she really wants to be on her feet, but has no balance. She's good leg strength and starting to gain upper body strength.
And the person's name?
Lisa.
Lisa. Hi, Lisa. Thank you for your question. I hope you are listening or will listen to this podcast and know that we're answering you. I am questioning and guessing that she wants to stand and you stand her up, or the question is, does she come up to standing herself? If she's not coming up to standing herself, she really should not be standing now. Whatever her brain is forming, whatever patterns, it will, and I would say no. And I have that with younger children that didn't have, could do it and then had a catastrophic situation, like what happened with your daughter. And the parents say, oh, but my baby really really wants for me to hold them up and stand and, and I say, yeah, they'll also probably love crack cocaine if you gave it to them. So We don't give the child necessarily everything they like. We let them work their way to doing it if they want to. So if they're in your lap and they're trying to climb up on you to stand up, you can put your arms out so you make sure they don't fly off you, but you don't pick them up and hold them and let them be there. Not a good idea, really not a good idea. Again, I don't know where you are, and I don't know if they're practitioners, but it sounds to me that your child's brain is not positioned, but it could heal quite a bit. It sounds like there's a lot of vitality in her, and that brain, from my point of view, is just from what I heard. So it's very little, but my sense from what I heard is that it's starving for information. It's starving for experiences and permutations and of movement and the way it's done and so on, that I don't know that regular therapy or someone would know to give them or her. And so if you are able to go to a practitioner and start working with a practitioner some as soon as you can, so I would strongly recommend it. And use the essentials with your daughter, and don't put her in positions she doesn't get to by herself. That's the flexible goals we talked in the previous podcast. You and people will tell you to do it, and you feel like she wants it, and so on. But it's not enough just not to put her. Her brain needs to be fed in new information so she can progress. And she's 2. She can. Anyway, I hope you do. And let us know how it's going, and let us know if this answer helps you, if you hear it. Can you ask the one?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Because we have 2 of them.
We had a question from Nicholas Wangamati, and he says, when are we going to see ABM training workshops in Africa? I will do that.
Okay, because I want to answer it.
So Linda says you need to come to Canada, Eastern Ontario, Toronto, or Ottawa. Those are the 2.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to be announcing that too, but we have a practitioner, Chris Kriskowski, who has been with us for 7 years and used to be a PT before. And Chris's dream, and one of the essentials is,
imagination and dreams.
Is to travel and bring this work to different parts of the United States and the world. And Chris is just starting to do that. So and we're going to be sending out an announcement about it, so you would know how you might be able to get Chris. And he's wonderful, and if they're local practitioners, he very often would work, create programs together with them while they're there. So he works with the child, and some other practitioners also work with the child. And so just stay tuned.
Yeah, because I think it's important to say we do have many practitioners in Canada, and also now some in Africa. We have 2 wonderful practitioners in South Africa, but definitely Chris coming to visit the world and bring his experience and team up. We like working as a team. We think it really benefits the child. So I think that could be...
And the practitioners.
And the practitioners, absolutely. So moving back to the accumulated questions. This is from Lindsay Worgan. How can I interest my blind and brain damaged son to become motivated to move? I believe he has the potential to walk and is very strong, but I haven't found anything that interests him enough to motivate him to do anything other than throw an object. I have read Anat's book.
Okay, I'm going to answer, and if you have any, of course, jump in. So my guess, it was
Lindsay.
My guess, Lindsay, is that the reason or could be the reason that your child is motivated in throwing things is that when he throws them, there's sound is generated, there's an outcome, and maybe some vibration. I have no idea what he throws and how close or far he is from the things, But my guess is that there's some outcome, and there might also be an outcome in the sense of he's not deaf, is he? He's blind.
No, blind.
So maybe
he hears a reaction from the people around him.
Yes, exactly. Don't throw, yes, throw. I don't know. And that is a very, very important element. The brain is built to organize action, and action has included in it outcome. So if there's no perception of outcome, or an outcome then nothing much will happen. So my suggestion, I don't know, but if sound gets his attention, even if he likes to throw a toy, and again, I don't know how much he does move around. I don't know if he rolls over. I don't know if he can crawl. I don't know if he can, so on. But, and success is also very important, but if he throws an object and he hears you and you say, coming back, and you make sound as you tap the toy on whatever surface and you bring it closer to him, and then you bring it close enough, touch his hand, and then take it half an inch away so that he gets the sense of distance and reaching. This is just one example. So the more you can engage his world in outcomes that he can make sense of, because if you put an object just lying inert a half a foot away from him, he doesn't know it's there. He has no, you see, everything we do was learned. Gauging distances when we look is learned. Gauging hearing, and hearing is not as directionally accurate in our brains as vision, but blind people have auditory directionality, I believe, a whole lot more accurate than just normal mediocre people like us that use our eyes so much.
Even to the extent that some, very young children can learn to echolocate. They'll sort of like make a sound and they'll get the sense it's coming off that wall and there's no wall there, and they end up being able to navigate brilliantly just through, it's like bats use.
And this is like a fantastic example of neuroplasticity, that the brain is organized, is built to organize action, function, outcome. It's not outcome in terms of I have a goal and I've got to get it now. It's in terms of if I do this, this happens. I do that, that happens. I put my foot on the outer side. I'm not very balanced, and I topple to the side. Toddlers walk so badly so many times that they can walk well, because they gradually hone in on where it works well. So look for ways to engage him through sound, and if he does not move or has difficulty, I don't know his condition, moving again. And if he's had therapy, if it's helping, great. And if it's not helping, maybe you want to try working with the practitioner. I know today I'm saying it so much, but I don't know what else to say, because that's what we know to help with. And you using the essentials and use sound and touch. You could even do something, if you can put me your arm in front, I can start, I can tap on an object here, and then here, then not big distances, not big changes, because the brain then will give up if it loses track. But this, and then you can take the child other hand and go like that. Not you tap, but they tap. So you start doing things like, and it's just an example.
And
I don't
me,
know if it'll work well.
That was a fascinating experience, because when you tap my hand, then not only did I get the sound of Anat tapping her own hands, but I felt the breeze and I felt a little bit of a vibration too. He's
a musician. He's a violin player and an opera singer, so he is also more echo oriented. Okay.
But it was fascinating.
A quick, is there a current question?
No. Well, there was a follow-up to the orthotics question from Matthew Evans saying, does the doctor also leave the heel out of the cast? But not what we've seen.
No,
it's just the front of the foot.
No, because he wants to protect, because of the procedure for a little while, the ankle is not strong enough right and left, so he doesn't want it to sprain right or left. Yeah.
So I think this relates nicely to what you just said about the toddler wanting to sort of experiment with all sorts of ways of like walking wrongly.
They don't want to experiment. They have no choice.
No, they don't want to. But if we want them to walk as well as possible, then
we have to get variability.
Yeah.
But it's very important. The toddler has the impetus to stand up and propel him or herself forward, but they don't know how to do it, right? They're learning how to do it. So it goes one way, it goes another way. One leg goes here, they fall forward, they fall backwards on their tush. Some things might be a little hurtful if they twist the foot too much, and so on. So the brain goes like, the brain selects what to do. It's by approximation. It's so important. Learning is always by approximation, and you start where you are. You always start with the child where they are, and you start with yourself where you are. You don't try to do things that are way over your head. You start where you are and you do the essentials, and you see what happens. I kind of promise you, if you do it, miracles will start popping. That's my experience.
So to follow on from that, Gillian Beckett says, I have an almost 4-year-old granddaughter with cerebellar hypoplasia. She also had a stroke in the womb, which has affected her left side. She has difficulty standing unaided. Her balance is so bad. She will stand holding onto furniture, but as soon as she lets go, she falls to the ground. We don't know what to do now to help her stand on her own.
Well, first of all, does she come up to standing herself? If she's not coming up to standing herself, but you position her, you are handicapping her enormously. Because the process of the child figuring out how to come from being on the ground to standing on the feet has 90% of the elements or 95% of the elements that are required for successful standing. So if you remember the duck, if you think of a puzzle, and the standing is like this puzzle, but it's a dynamic puzzle. So there's the things that the lower back does and things the head does, and they do it in relation to each other, and the arms and the shoulders, and all the pieces have to coordinate into simultaneous, one-time, continuous process. Everybody works together. The process of coming from down to up to standing has pretty much all the fundamental elements that are required dynamically, three-dimensional pieces of a puzzle for standing to happen and for walking eventually to happen. So if you stand her up, not a good idea. If she pulls herself up to standing, that's great, and give her different things to hold on to. And she needs to be able, of course, to get down by herself to successfully and fall successfully, or she will never take the risk of not holding on to things, and do playful things with it. Put one foot in one kind of shoe and another foot in another kind of shoe. Have her look at something up or something down. I mean, just play around it. And, we're coming to the end of this podcast.
We are. So thank you very much for joining us. We're always we're thrilled to be here with you all. I mean, we're having a great time doing these podcasts. I'm learning so much by sitting next to Anat. It's incredible. And as we said, we have many questions. I mean, one area that we haven't touched on much in these podcasts is adults. Most of the podcasts have been focused on children. So, we said we will have a number of podcasts related specifically around the topic of autism spectrum disorder, but also we'll have some, design.
Or we can just start answering, because the parents that are asking the questions usually are adults.
That's true.
And we can answer things that you want within yourself to take care of or figure out, not just within your child. So we will start peppering. Maybe we'll agree to answer at least one adult question if we have it
Excellent.
per podcast.
Excellent suggestion.
We just made a new thing.
So once more, thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on NeuroMovement Revolution with Anat Baniel. You will find all of our podcasts and additional resources on our website at www.anatbanielmethod.com. You can also subscribe to this podcast for free on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, and tune in. We look forward to seeing you online for our next NeuroMovement Revolution.